Hi there, and welcome to Grief Book Roundup, a podcast where on each episode I'll share a grief book I love in 10 minutes or less. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I'm an intuitive grief guide and author who helps people come back to life after devastating loss. After my mom died in 2013, I became a voracious student of grief and found myself practically inhaling stories related to loss, transformation, and finding your way again after everything falls apart. I found that in grief, when we can find the words that speak most to our hearts, something unlocks in us, and we are not only able to put what we're experiencing into some kind of human vocabulary, we are reassured that we are not the only people sitting inside a lonely and overwhelming experience of heartbreak. That's pretty powerful. On Grief Book Roundup, I'll introduce you to grief books you've seen on store shelves and books you've never heard of before. I'll also be highlighting marginalized authors, especially those that are underrepresented in the grief space, which, as of the launch of this podcast, is overwhelmingly straight, white, and female. While death of a spouse, death of a parent, and death of a child are the most common stories told in grief books, I'll also call attention to underrepresented and invisible losses like miscarriage, suicide, death of a sibling, mental illness, job loss, racial and ancestral loss, loss of friendship, loss of belonging, loss of a dream, and loss of identity. Above all else on Grief Book Roundup, I'll remind you that in whatever loss you're facing, you are not alone. On each episode, I'll share 3 words to describe the book, a synopsis, and a little bit about the author. I'll also be reading a favorite quote or two so you can get an idea of the author's voice and the overall tone of the book. Please know that I will not be ranking books on a grade system or a star scale because everyone's grief journey is unique. The purpose of Grief Book Roundup is not to pit grief books against each other, but to create an ever-widening circle of helpful resources that span a vast array of losses and perspectives. As with everything else in your grief, take what works for you and discard the rest. No book is off-limits to you, and you're free to pick and choose which books you consume based on my commentary. In the show notes for each episode, I'll provide a link to where you can buy the book on Bookshop, a wonderful website that supports local bookstores with every purchase. I'll also include a link to buy the book on Amazon if Bookshop is not available in your country. If you really like a book you hear about on this show, I highly encourage you, wherever you are in the world, to request the book be stocked at your local library. That's one of the very best ways to get a great grief book into the hands of as many grieving people as possible. On Grief Book Roundup, I'll stick primarily to nonfiction works, including memoir and autobiography, self-help, poetry, journalism, how-to, graphic novel, and anthology. If you're looking for your next great grief read, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe to Grief Book Roundup wherever you get your podcasts, so you'll get the latest episode delivered straight to your device. And if you have a griever, a bookworm, or a grieving bookworm in your life, please share this show with them. Because at some point, we will all seek out words to comfort, support, motivate, or inspire us in our grief. I look forward to sharing Grief Book Roundup with you. Because even through grief, we are growing.